Hello, my friends, and welcome to a live stream where we have a guest. You're used to just seeing Carrie and I, but today we have the amazing Dawn Andrews, and we're going to talk about leadership. And it's such a big topic, and all of you watching are in different places. So please, if you have comments or questions, let us know in the chat and we'll address those for you. But I think in general, we're going to talk about building a team around your vision, what it's even like to claim your leadership and why it's so important. And I know we just chatted kind of before we went live about how life-changing it is to start working with people who take you and your vision seriously and add their genius to it. It changed how I thought about business and work and what I wanted out of life. Like, it was absolutely revolutionary for me. And it doesn't require you to have full-time employees. So even if you're just starting out, this is a really good conversation to have because you'll develop the mindset that will really help you do what you want to do in the world. And you're not going to be bogged down by that false thinking of like, I need to have this much revenue before I start working with people. So yeah, Dawn, why don't you tell us a little bit about, what you're up to right now in your company, Free Range Thinking, because I don't know if people here know you.
Thank you. Well, first of all, Carrie and Rachel are my BFFs, my business BFFs. So we've been in a mastermind group for 5 years or more now. I think isn't that what our last count was? So they have seen all of the ups and downs of my company. So I own a business strategy consultancy called Free Range Thinking. And we work with early stage business owners to help them develop the leadership skills and strategies that they need to grow a big, beautiful business. And specifically what's going on with me right now and what has me in this conversation with you guys today is there's a renewed focus for me, or a more deepening focus on women in leadership. And I've launched a new program called the Female Leadership Accelerator to help women step into leadership across all industries, all areas of life. I just want to see more female leaders in the world. And what had me started is being frustrated with the state of our world prior to the election in 2020, and knowing in my heart, soul, and every fiber of my being that if more women claimed for themselves the title of leader or CEO and engaged in being leaders in all different strata of life, that we probably wouldn't be in the position that we were in at the tail end of 2020. And so I'm on fire to train more women to be powerful and empowered leaders.
Okay, Dawn, I love this conversation, and I love this conversation with you, and I freaking love what you're up to in terms of women and leadership. And I just want to say that we are recording this. We are live today, the day after. I just saw a meme today on Facebook or somewhere where it was the first time the president has said, Madam Vice President, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
And how just like powerful and empowering that is. And I'm going to say that even for me, Rachel, you, who all see ourselves as empowered female leaders already. So I just know what it's doing for women in our country, at the very least. Being able to see that it's just an incredible moment.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, Rachel, do you mind if I jump in? Because I want to ask you, because when you and I met, you were coaching. And so for those of you who don't, Dawn's amazing. She is an exceptional business strategist. And I know you're still happily doing that. And you were volunteering your time. I think you were volunteering. You were lending your time either way to a place called Camp Powerment.
Yes.
And
still am.
Yes. And I saw you dipping your toe in the female leadership space there, and feeling excited and enlivened and empowered by your ability to show up in that space and in that way. Was that like the beginning of the evolution of this? Did it start even before that into really feeling like it's time for us women to step into our power?
Gosh, it's because you guys have hold some of my history in your hearts. I think you probably saw it before I did that this was coming this way. Campowerment certainly focused it. And the program that I've developed came out of teaching in Campowerment and having a conversation with the founder over there. Her name's Tammy Fuller. And it's a 3 generation of women started Campowerment. And so getting to know them, getting to know their families, and then having this conversation with Tammy about, kind of what's the state of women in the world right now. And during the pandemic, seeing so many women leave the workforce. So more than 1.5 million women have left the workforce with no intentions to return. And if you think about how long we've taken to hold space, claim equal pay, like get ourselves into a position to actually, be taken seriously and have impact and influence, that's a huge loss. And that's just the ones that we know about that are employed in some sort of corporate setting. We don't know about how many small businesses have closed as well that are female owned. So all that to say, yes, I think that all of this has been coming to a head from being involved in Campowerment, but certainly the conversations over the last year have really made it extremely urgent for me. And I love that Kamala Harris is our vice president. Whether you agree with her politics or not, just the fact that there is a woman in that role is extraordinary. But my goal is to have that be the norm, not the exception. And let's celebrate it, yes. And we got a lot of work to do still.
Yeah. So I remember when I was starting my business, I think the biggest hurdle that I had was taking myself seriously and feeling like I was a business leader, or at least like leading my own business. I remember all the time, like forgetting what I was even doing. Like, what am I showing up to every day? Like, what is this thing that I'm creating? So what would you say to people like that who have been trying to do this for years even, but haven't left that place yet?
So let me ask you, Rachel, what's the title that you give yourself in relation to your business? Like, who are you to your business?
Yeah. Well,
what did you put on your tax form when they ask what your title is?
It's not good. It's, I think I put educator. Sometimes I put author. But when I'm filling out other kinds of forms, I put business owner. But yeah, I don't go into those specific business titles usually.
Okay. So not CEO, not founder, okay. Got it.
Founder, yes. I do use founder.
Okay, got it.
Quite a bit.
Okay. And then Carrie, how about for you, for your business and on your tax form, like what do you claim as your title?
Yeah, so interesting. I actually don't even know what I put on there. Should I know that? I have no idea what I put on there. I would probably put owner.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't put founder. And I see myself as a leader, and yet I wouldn't put CEO.
Uh-huh. Okay, got it. Okay, so on mine, it's CEO and founder. And I get that particular title, and I'll get to how to get to owning that, but I get that particular title, it may not resonate with you like from an aligned place, right? You're not corporate, you're not, part of the reason those titles fit for me, I grew up in a family business, and that was the titles that were in the family business that I was a part of. It's also relational to the clients that I serve. Like it's a title that they recognize because it's the language of their world. And so the clients that you may be serving may resonate with a different title. But there are two parts of that. One is choosing the title so that you can speak to your audience and they get that who you are to them. But the other thing that I find really interesting is that most of us are living in our past versions of ourselves. And depending upon how we grew up, the circumstances, what opportunities we had, I've always kind of been a bossy pants and always had the opportunity to lead. So the idea of being called a leader I don't recall a time that was foreign to me. I've always just sort of put myself out front. And the challenging thing with leadership is that when you put yourself out front, you receive more opportunities to put yourself out front, and people invest in you and in being that person, because people are always looking for, like we've heard the term leadership vacuum. People are always looking for somebody or something to fill that vacuum, and even vote people into office to fill that vacuum. And the challenge with that for women is that if you haven't claimed that space just by personality when you're younger, you might start to recede or cede that position to whomever fills the vacuum. And then it starts to be a self-perpetuating situation. So if you are in this place where you're a solopreneur right now, you're just getting a business started, or you have an existing business and you haven't yet claimed the role of leader, that has more to do with your past and how you see yourself and your beliefs about what you're capable of than anything else. And it can be as simple as, who do you want to be to your business? Who do you want to be to your clientele? And what's your best approximation of what that title is? And then you live into it, as opposed to living in reaction to it. Do you get what I mean?
Oh, Rachel, you're talking and we can't hear you. I'm going to say 1,000% I get what you mean. And this actually goes to you, Rachel, the question, because I resonate with you, Dawn. Bossy pants. Bossy pants over here. Born leader, in the sense that, like, I've always known that I can move a room to action. I've always known that I can get other people to do what I want them to do. I didn't know that I was a leader until like maybe late elementary or junior high, when they started to like point at me and be like, Carrie's a leader.
Elect people to the position of, yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's true. I was like student government when I was in junior high, all of that. Yeah. It just seemed normal to me. And then to grow up and be team captain of the teams that I was on, like I was told, you're a leader. And so I stepped naturally into that role. But I'm curious about you, Rachel, because I don't know that you necessarily had that same experience. And I see you now leading. What was that process for you?
Yeah, well, it was different. I've always had self-leadership. So even when I was like clinically depressed and couldn't speak in front of a room to save my life, I always knew what was best for me. And I always took action on that, even if it was defying the authority in my life. So even if I wasn't like bossy pants to other people, I always had that like inner confidence of like, this is my path and I'm like, F you, this is what I'm going to do, you know? So I think that really helps. And when it comes to like leading now and like the team that I have and the way I want my business to be run, it just seems natural, because I'm sure Dawn's going to get into this, but like the people that I attract are, for the most part, like offering up their best, and they see that I'm offering up my best, and there's like a mutual respect that really helps, like that there's little leadership needed, because whatever parameters I set like can be collaborated upon. And you know, what is the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I got my second shot I got yesterday, so I'm a little fuzzy headed, but you know what I mean? Like there's a give and take, and it's less about like bossy, and it's more about, I would call myself a gentle leader. And there's nothing wrong with bossy pants. Like I'm so into that, but I think I'm just a little bit more of like an assuming leader.
Well, I think it's interesting to dig into that, like related to claiming this title of leader. I think that what I'm finding in having conversations with lots of women about leadership is what keeps them from one of the things, there are many things, but one of the things that keeps them from claiming the title of leader is thinking that it has to look like the version that Carrie and I were just talking about or experiencing, like you're loud, or you're in the front of the room, or you're the one that says, everybody follow me, or whatever it is, or that you have a megaphone and a soapbox, or like pearls in a pantsuit, that, well, I can claim leader if I put on my pearls in a pantsuit. Like, I don't like pearls and I don't like pantsuits. unless they're super sexy and like tuxedo and, you know, with some sort of fancy like thing in my hair. And people need to understand that who they are is enough. How they are is enough. And it's more a matter of thinking about, what does leadership mean to you? What does that encompass? And kind of turning the earth a little bit to see what might be in your way from claiming that title. And the reason why claiming that title is important is because other people outside recognize it. Like when we talked a few minutes ago about calling myself a CEO or a founder, because that's something that my audience recognizes. Like if you want to be able to lead, influence, and move other people, your family, a church group, an activist organization, your business, people do need to have shared language to recognize who you are and how you're leading. But if you have a bunch of stories about how leaders are supposed to be, or that you have to change the whole of who you are to match up to some other outside definition of that, you can't claim the title and people can't then join you. And that's, to me, what you just described, Rachel, is that you have a different way about you and how you lead, but you still are claiming the title of leader in a way that the people who both work with you or follow you recognize. And so it may also take not just claiming it, but also clearing out whatever the head trash is that you have about who leaders are, how they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do, and just giving yourself a few minutes to uncover whatever those underlying beliefs are, so that you have a little more freedom to step into it.
Yeah. Don't you have a class like coming up about what kind of leader you are?
I do.
Want to
Yeah.
talk about that?
Yeah. So the greatest gift you can give yourself as you continue to grow in your influence as a leader is to know yourself and know what your style is. And there are so many different styles of leadership. And you probably have an intuitive sense, perhaps, of how you might lead. But again, we're trying to get some common language so people can understand how you like to lead versus how somebody else might like to lead. So this Friday through Campowerment, and then again on May 10th and May 11th, I'm teaching a webinar called What Type of Leader Are You? Discover the secret to confidential and influential leadership. And I'll let me drop in the chat. There's a link I can give you guys.
While you're typing
on the wait list.
While you're typing the link, because I know if you're like me, I can't type and talk at the same time.
Vamp, somebody vamp.
I'll just say I love that subtitle about confidential and influential leadership. And can you tell me why you chose those words?
So discover the secret to confident and influential leadership. And the reason I chose those two is, again, it's coming out straight out of the conversations I'm having with women that are interested in growing in this way. The number one complaint I hear is that I just want to feel more confident in leading. And there's some things that you can do on your own, but most of it is take action and then the confidence comes afterwards. We as women, I find it drives me crazy about myself, and it drives me crazy in other people, is that we want to have everything all organized, all polished, pretty, perfect. Like everything has to be buttoned up before we reveal ourselves to somebody else. Like reveal ourselves to our clients, reveal a new product. But the problem is that we're spending so much time alone in our own heads, like especially like for all my solopreneurs out there, because everybody starts that way. Everybody starts as a solopreneur. You're spending too much time up in here on your own and not interacting with others. And like, I don't like to necessarily be gendered about this, but men are just not brought up that way. Like if my husband and I are confronted with the same problem, I will go through all kinds of crazy mental gymnastics to solve whatever that problem is. And he'll immediately look through his phone and figure out 3 people he can call that have already done it. And he's solved it before I even like get the words out of my mouth, because he's leveraging his community outside. So one of the challenges women have is confidence. And if you have some insight about what your leadership style is, you have a little bit of a framework to hang things on, to feel bold enough to start testing with other people. And you have a shared language to share with other people about how you like to lead. And the tools that I use have been tested on more than 1 million leaders. So you know that the language that you're using is something that is already recognized, like out in the world. So for instance, as you can probably tell from this conversation, I am a very fast-paced and outspoken person. Rachel, you might tend more towards the cautious and reflective style of speaking and leading, or somewhere on that continuum. But imagine just being able to say to somebody, you know what, I'm fast-paced. I think fast, I talk fast, I move fast. And if somebody is or isn't that way, at least you now have a shared reference point. And that makes it easier to be a little more confident and a little more influential in your leadership. So that's what the whole class is about, is discovering what your specific style is, so that you have a little bit of, little bit of armor, a little bit of weight behind you, a little bit of support to start really testing the boundaries of your leadership.
I do want to add too, so a lot of people are really surprised when they find out that I'm an introvert, because I do so much video and I do seem to be putting myself out there in so many ways. But yes, people, confirmed introvert here. These guys had to like pull me into their group or I wouldn't even know them. So I just want to say too, a lot of our people are more of the quiet, creative, reflective, cautious type people. And if you do feel like, I hate calling people, I don't like reaching out to those I don't know, I don't like leaving my house. You really can be a super successful leader no matter what your personality is. And I'm sure Dawn goes over that too.
I absolutely do. And this may shock and awe, but I am like a code red introvert. So there may be how I'm showing up on screen. I talk fast, I think fast, but don't equate that with being I love people. So even pre-pandemic, I was like, I am the OG social distancer, people. I work from home. I do not go out. Trying to get me out to go to a lunch with somebody, the first thing that I feel is like, oh, okay. That means I have to figure out an outfit. We have to choose a restaurant. And it's exhausting. And I assure you that after this conversation, which I'm so grateful and excited to be on, there will be a moment of pause and quiet and hydrating and kicking my feet up. Whereas for other people, the idea of getting on a call and sharing this information can be super energizing. For me, I'm like, I am 100% here because I'm committed and passionate about this topic and passionate about women in leadership. And I will put myself out of my comfort zone to do it. But I'm sharing this with you so that you don't have a false impression that it has to show up with a red lip and high energy to be a leader either. This is learned behavior. This is a choice. This is me stepping out of my comfort zone to take action as a leader. So if you're quiet, you can do it too.
Well, and Dawn, I just want to tell you, so this must be for the introvert leaders out there, because same, except I am happy to be in front of the room. I freaking love being in front of the room. It fills me up to be in the front of the room. Having conversations like this that I'm super passionate about, they are life-giving. And I am an introvert. Now, I'm probably, people who know me in a coaching capacity or this capacity, they'd be like, oh, she's an extrovert for sure. But my family is like, oh, Carrie, she's an introvert. She never wants to go out. She'd never, oh God, hosting a party is my personal nightmare. And I am married to the most social extrovert on the planet. And he's a serial inviter. So he's always like, oh, we'll do it. Anyways, you guys know this about me, but I just wanted to say that we are 3 different stages, 3 different phases of introvert leader, in front of you guys. And that's kind of a cool thing to know. I would have totally pegged you as an extrovert when I first met you, Dawn. I totally would have pegged you as an extrovert. Rachel, I always knew you were.
There was no denying it.
Yeah. But darn it, I had a question about women leadership. Oh, it was this. Okay. So you guys are both running businesses where you now have a team of people helping you, right? And we sort of started the conversation there. And that, I think this is an interesting place to talk about leadership. I am not doing that. I am on Rachel's team, right? And I'm on actually lots of teams where my role is to lead. My role in someone else's team is to be a leader, which I find fascinating. And it is terrifying to me, the thought of being a boss. So like I lead a team of high school kids. I can lead people to a decision. I can lead a room to action. But I'm recognizing as we're having this conversation, like, ooh, that is something for me. I started at the beginning saying I don't claim CEO. And now I'm putting the inner work that we'd be doing with Dawn. I'm doing live on this call of like, oh, dang, maybe I don't want to claim CEO because I don't want to think about being someone's boss. And the distinction between boss and leader. And I know we sort of started there, but for women, taking your webinar, learning your leadership style, I think that there could be a very empowering thing behind knowing, oh, this is how I show up and this is how I lead. And there is unique and inherent value in this. And I don't have to be a boss to be a leader, or vice versa.
It's interesting. I think every single one of us out there has boss trauma. Like we've all worked for shitty leaders, people that have just left some indelible emotional scar on us in some way. And so when you think about being somebody's boss, like that word alone is a trigger word for a lot of people, right? And it may be interconnected with the word leader as well. One of the things that we teach in the Accelerator, so the webinar is what kind of leader are you? And then that leads into the Female Leadership Accelerator training program. One of the things that we talk about in the Accelerator is a format or a concept of leadership that helps simplify what being a leader and leading your company could look like, or even being a leader inside a company can look like. And the responsibilities are really crystallized. It's vision, alignment, and execution. Vision, alignment, and execution. And if you have those three things going, then you can actually lead people because you're exciting them, inviting them, and inspiring them into what this imagined future is, the vision. You're helping align their skills and talents around that. And then you're following up with the execution to make sure that those things are happening. And to me, that's kind of the difference between a leader and a boss, is that a leader is concerned with those three things, vision, alignment, and execution, whereas a boss is concerned with control. They want to control their people. They want to be able to say, do it or I will find somebody else to do it. Do it or you will be fired. They want to be able to drop a fear bomb because it resonates and keeps people motivated for a period of time, but doesn't require their accountability and involvement and investment in people, because they can just run it on fear and then they'll wait a little while. And when the results start to dip, they'll come back in and drop another fear bomb and keep repeating the cycle. And I think that's the challenge. I mean, that would be one of the things that I think is underneath people not wanting to be the boss of their business, is feeling like every boss I've ever had has tried to control me through fear. And nobody wants to be that person to other people. Well, hopefully most people don't want to be that person to other people. So does that distinction make sense?
1,000%. Go ahead, Rachel.
I also think it's really good to know that you might not know how to do this just on your own. You know, like I've had to learn so much over the years about working with people, collaborating, hiring, and I don't know it all. I don't know this much. I have a lot of challenges at times. I don't know how to deal with things. Like, this isn't necessarily a skill set that we were modeled, like Dawn is saying, or that we have access to without direct training. And I'm saying that because it's not your fault if you don't know how to do this, or you're not like excited to give it a try. Like, there are a lot of things in business where we're challenged, and luckily there are resources that we can go to learn more. you know, my boyfriend has been in management off and on for the last 20 years, and he's constantly reading books about it and upping his skills because the people who come in and out of his workplace change and he needs to know new things. So I love your framework, and it makes such a, like, I'm like putting it into practice. And I know like when I actually do that vision work with people, it's so powerful and they are intrinsically motivated to help you and to do what they can and to raise their game. So that sounds really awesome.
Well, that's exactly why I created this, you guys, is because first of all, as I mentioned before, if you kind of come out of the gate as being somebody who is inclined towards being in the front of the room or inclined towards leading or telling people what to do, you do get more opportunities to lead, which means you're either learning on the fly or people put you into a leadership program or put you on some sort of leadership track. And think of it like, you know, going to the gym and training. You can either go in and start lifting weights randomly on your own or trying a few different things, or you can work with a trainer and you can say, this is the kind of result I want. And they'll put you on a track and give you the specific exercises and things to do that are likely to give you that outcome. So if my vision is women in leadership at all levels is 100% normal, celebrated and normal, then we need to have some kind of training and track available so that it removes some of the mental weight that we feel about it and removes some of the learning curve so that people don't feel like, ugh, like another thing for me to do. And so that's why I created the program. It was to make it a little more effortless and more focused for women to continue to improve in these skills and to not have to, like, part of what came out of this program is that I have read the 150 top leadership books of all time, even through 2020, 2021, to be able to share that information with you and distill it down in a way that I know tracks towards something. I've also, I've worked with all of my, like, thousands of clients and seen what works and what doesn't, just to remove that amount of effort and confidence that you know that something's actually leading where you want it to go, so that you can focus on actually leading, testing some things out with your team uniquely, and know that you're coming from a place of best practices to get what you want and not feel like you're sort of searching around in the dark or trying by the seat of your pants or investing all this time reading books or learning from leaders, like the examples of bad leaders in the past, and just trying to not do what they did. You know what I mean?
So I have two things, and I want to toot your horn for a minute
Okay.
and say that this isn't just knowledge coming from reading lots of leadership books, and I'll get back to that.
Yeah.
It's also being a leader in your industry and working. Like, Dawn's client list is quite impressive, and she works with some male and female leaders on a global scale that are influencing how we experience our life, like on the daily. And so it's not just like it's not just I've been doing my work in leadership. It's I'm working with the movers and shakers. So you can own that, CEO Dawn Andrews.
Thank you.
And female leadership looks different. I know this is something
100%.
like what Rachel was saying about, I've always known myself, and I was thinking about my leadership challenges. One of the places that I lead is in athletics. And when I was young and a leader of women's teams, I felt like, oh, well, it just makes sense because this is how girls need to be led. That's really what I thought. And for a long time, and I still believe this, like, I know I am doing amazing work, showing up the way that I show up, trusting myself as a woman to lead women. But what I'm learning more and more is it's not just the girls that need this, right? That the way we've learned leadership is imbalanced. And the reason so many of us equate boss and leader to the same thing is because there's a certain style of masculine leadership that maybe is a little bit more fear-based. And so that's what I love. Two things about your program. One, that it's called the Accelerator because it truly is, right? It truly, like, it is. And to be fair, I have not experienced Dawn's program. I've just experienced Dawn. And you are an accelerator. And
100%.
And like you just said, anytime that you can distill years of learning into something compact and intense, it is an accelerator.
Yeah.
But two, that it's specifically for women, not just because we need to see more women leaders, but that women lead differently.
So think of it this way. And because what I'd really like to do is not, I'm not trying to vilify a gender. Men physically, the way they are built, have more muscle mass, height, bone density. They literally are physically stronger than women. It's just, that's physiologically what's going on. Nobody's to blame for it. Like, it just is, that's how it is. And if you consider that any form of leadership back to caveman times comes from that place of I am physically dominant, that everything that has fallen out of that tracks with that. It's a paradigm. If I can physically overpower someone, then I can lead from that place. It gets results. And even modern day leadership, if you look at the top leadership books of the last decade, they're all written by men. And again, no disrespect, it's just, it tracks with the paradigm that we've been living in. What we need to know about women is that because of that, we are more collaborative, because we need, like, if there's one that is the overpowering, then we probably need 2, 3 or more to overpower. You know what I mean? So we tend to work more in collaborative environments. We invite team, we invite conversation and shared ideas. We're collaborative, and we've also been outsiders. We've been the ones left on the side of the field. So that's a style that has great value in terms of where we're going in the world and the problems that we're trying to solve. And we need to start seeing these things that we've considered weaknesses or flaws or lack of opportunities from a feminine perspective as the actual gold. Like, this is the jewels that make all the difference in where this is all heading moving forward. We're not going to solve climate change by somebody deciding that they're the one true, rightful ruler and dictating to everybody else. We're going to solve it because, similar to the way that we've created a vaccine for the coronavirus, like, that is people collaborating from all different countries coming together with their best ideas and information. And women are uniquely suited to lead teams in that way instead of a dictatorial way. So that's another focus of the Female Leadership Accelerator, is leaning into these beautiful, what we would have considered flaws, to really leverage them to make great things happen.
Okay. I want to bring something up that people might resonate with who are watching this, which is, if you have a small business, you just want to be a service provider, let's say, you feel like you have something you want to bring to the world, or you're a creative and, you're an artist, whatever it happens to be, I have found that the benefit of, like, leaning into leadership is that my purpose can be fulfilled on this planet in a bigger way. And that then can lead to these big solutions that Dawn is talking about without even trying, like, without you intending, I'm going to solve this problem. You're building up your energy and your contribution to the planet because you have more impact on this world, help bringing your energy through. And I know all of you here today you have the biggest, brightest intention of bringing your light and love to this planet. And for me, like, I honestly have quite, like, a selfish goal and desire in growing my business. It's to work with more people that I absolutely love and to see my creative vision come into being in bigger and better ways. And that's really, it's fulfilling, it's inspiring to other people, it's completely gratifying, it's expanding me and my capacity to hold love and my capacity to be financially philanthropic, throughout the world. Like, you can have, like, a selfish desire and purpose for yourself in growing a business and in leaning into leadership, because it feels good, because you want to be more creative, because you want to work with certain people that you love that make you better. And I just, I love sharing that, because a lot of people are like, I don't know my why, or my purpose is to heal the world and to help people. And sometimes, like, if we're just assuming that that's what we need to say or feel, it doesn't really connect, and it makes it hard. So if you have to go to that place of like, I want to do this because it feels good, I want to do this because I want to be able to support myself, there's nothing wrong with that.
100%. 100%. Well, and I'd be curious. So Rachel, in claiming leadership over your business and finding ways to continue to expand that, tell me about your choices in bringing in team. Like, what was it like to bring your first person in, and how did that go? Or what were you concerned about? Like, where was that a challenge?
Well, I remember really, really early on in my business, like, I'm one of those people where I get offended if you ask me to do something I don't want to do. Like, I'm not good at that. So there were all these tasks, of course, in a business that I was stuck doing that I didn't want to do. And so I just started making a list of all the things I would give an assistant if I could ever afford one. And so I had a list going, which was like pre-paving my energy. It was like getting my mindset to the place of, yeah, maybe one day I can have someone else do these things. But then it really just happened quite organically. A friend of mine called me and said, like, we were just talking, and then a friend of his needed a job and had this amazing resume. And so I interviewed her and I hired her for just a couple hours a week. It was something I could afford. And then she grew with me and then started her own agency after a couple of years. And it's actually happening again, which is really cool. And then that happened over and over again. It was like I needed something, or I was like, I had an opening for like more creative help or an editor or something, and then people would just kind of show up for me. I have looked for people once in a while. It works a little bit less sometimes, like if you're searching, because then you're kind of in like problem mode. But it's always worked out, and I've always had really amazing, wonderful people show up.
It's interesting. One of the things that you guys mentioned you want to talk about was starting to build team, especially as a solopreneur, because it can get really, first of all, it's lonely. You can spend a lot of time in your head best guessing at what you think your clientele want, or what you should be doing, or how you should be doing it. But it also, it will diminish your flame. Like, over time, year over year, doing it all yourself, all of it, whatever all of it looks like for you, doing it all yourself will crush you. It just will. Doesn't matter how much reserves you have. And these women on this call have seen me like on the floor from surviving do-it-yourselfness, like, and needing medical intervention and recovery from do-it-yourselfness. So if I can be a cautionary tale for anybody, the sooner you can get other people involved. And one of the things that you said, Rachel, that I think is really a great perspective to come from is, what am I really excited to do and what don't I want to do? And almost to not come at it from, how can I get this done cheaply? But if I had my best possible outcome, I want to hand off this chunk of, things to do. If I had my best possible outcome, what would that look like? And let the cost of it, at least in this planning stage, be secondary to it. Because another mistake that I've made and that I see people make is that in starting to build your team, you're like, well, I've got $30 a month, or I've got $30 a week, or I've got, so I've got to find somebody that'll work 3 hours a week for $10 an hour. And we use the math to solve the problem. And I totally get why we do that. It's a natural progression. And it's more quantifiable, because it literally is numbers, and quantifying somebody's quality that they can bring to you is harder, especially when you haven't yet met them or tested things out with them. But the problem with that is that it always has us going for the lowest common denominator and comparing it against our own pocketbooks, but not against what our value is that we bring to our clients. So what I mean by that is, if you're in your best place, If you're doing your best work with the things that you like to do, impacting others, the value that you're bringing to others, some of it is shown in the fees that you're charging, but it's always more than that. But if you start looking at hiring your team from this place of, I only have, $100 a month, you're devaluing your time because you're starting to work for $100 a month or less to do all the work yourself. So when it comes to building out your team and getting your first person on board, the thing that I like to do with my clients is list every single thing that you're doing, exhaustive, annoyingly so, down to the minutia. And then I A, B, or C. A's are the things that if I could only do this ever in my business, this is the only things I ever had to do, it would be I would be bursting with joy. The C's are, sweet Jesus, if somebody else could do this and I never had, if I didn't even have to know it existed, that's the C's. The B's are everything that's left in between. It will be a lot, but then you start parsing the B's and pushing it up into an A- or the C zone. And anything from that B zone down, start finding other people to do it as soon as you can. If you've already sold something, if you've proven that you have a product or service that people want, you are ready to hire your first team member. If you have sold something and people have collected money for your services, whether it's the smallest number or the biggest number, you are ready to start looking for team. So do that as soon as possible so you can really start leveraging your time to do what you do best and start making even more money.
Amen. You said it in such a different way, but I literally just had this conversation with a client this week where she recognized, she was like, oh, I need to hire someone. She was in that headspace. And she has been making plenty of money and wasn't paying herself, wasn't valuing herself, but we just did basically the same activity. And oh my gosh, what an empowering difference it made. And then I was just in a conversation today, and I think this is a good example, with a friend who is moving. And she was talking, and it's a 2-hour drive from one house to the next. And she was talking about how she's in a position, her husband is deployed overseas. And so she's in a position of needing to lead this move, right? Needing to steer the ship. And she was talking about all the ways that she's scrambling and doing it all and overwhelmed, and she's packing and trying to run a business and doing the things that we women do. I find it so interesting. We just, we're like pack mules, right? We just shoulder the burden and trudge uphill. And we don't complain, or maybe we complain to each other, but we don't do anything about our complaints. And she was in this place, and it was a call like this. There were 3 of us on the call, and my other friend and I were like, girl, hire movers. I know it looks expensive. I know on paper it might seem expensive, but then we started to rattle off how it feels to have movers. And did you know that they'll pack your stuff and they'll disassemble your furniture and reassemble your furniture? And they're exactly what you're talking about, the above and beyond. All she's thinking about is I need to locate things from one thing to the other. And we're like, you don't even know how amazing it is. And anyways, that was what, as you were describing this, if you've earned money, you're ready for your first hire. And what Rachel says all the time, you don't even know how good it can be. And I love looking at it from that place, which goes back to where you started when talking about leadership, right? It's vision. And anyways, all that to be said is, I think as women, it's time for us to see ourselves, whether it is just, I'm going to use just you as an artist wanting to sell a painting on Etsy, or you as someone who sees yourself because I think there's a lot of people who watch us who are service providers. They are well, I don't need a team. I'm a psychic and I see clients, or it's just me and my business and it's fine because I just want to make enough money. That word "just," by the way, is on my hit list right now. Anyways, I'm talking in circles. If you've never watched us before, this is what I do. But I feel like I'm swirling around the point. Have either of you nailed it?
I mean,
kind of.
So, I mean, I look at leadership as going from passive to active. Like, if you think about like dropping a sailboat into the ocean, if you are passive, you're there's going to be a current and some wind that'll take you somewhere, but it feels like, okay, now I'm at the mercy of life. I'm at the mercy of people who don't want to book me. I'm at the mercy of what everyone thinks I am. And we can get really bogged down there if we don't realize, oh my God, I've got sails. You know what? Sailboats even have motors. If you realize that, like, I have tools, inherent tools within me where I can tell what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy and who I want to be and who I don't want to be, like, that is really good guidance. You can put that motor on, you can put those sails up, and you can find the wind and go to where you want to go. And it's not always like, oh, put my sails up, now I'm there. Like, it can take some time and getting to know yourself. And like, that's kind of what we're talking about today. It's like, this is a journey, and it's one that keeps getting better and better as you get more comfortable and confident, and you find these amazing people who are, investing in your dream and where you want to go, right? Your crew members, they're coming aboard, and it becomes way more fun and profitable. And like, there's no downside to becoming more active in your life and in your business.
No.
Even if you can't see it yet. Like, I totally couldn't see it at first, how I would have so many people around me. But man, it is so good. And Dawn was just saying before the call, like, she loves the team she has right now.
I love them. And it's a matter of cash, like being able to be free to create more sales for yourself, but it's also a matter of time, because there's no replacing that for any of us, right? So what's been interesting in this phase and with this team that I have right now is that it's allowed me time to just goof off, like to just play or to spend more time writing or making that thing that I actually want to put my hands on, the things that are on my A list, and not feel like, oh man, I only have, like, I got to give this 10 minutes and then I got to move to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Like, I don't feel that pressure, because whatever I'm investing in related to this team, it's building back my business for the next iteration that I'm building right now. It's giving me free time to be with my kids, to kick it and watch whatever I want to watch on Netflix. Like, team is extraordinary. And so one of the things that I wanted to share with you guys is that the webinar and finding out what your leadership style is, that can also help you discern a little bit the kind of team member that you want. Most people initially go to, I need an administrative person. Like, I just need somebody to do some of the grunt work. And that's probably true for most people first, like just as a general target. What I have found, though, is that once you have a better understanding of what your leadership styles and strengths are, you can actually either look for the administrative assistant that also has complementary qualities to you, or it may be a completely different position that isn't administrative. It's actually something different. So for me, I move fast. I come up with lots of great ideas. I'm constantly like, here's a new direction to go in. And I don't necessarily consider the plans and what the implications of the plans are and how much time it might take. So my administrative person and everybody on my team are all analysts, planners, details. Like, they cover that off for me. And that's one of those bonuses that, had I not known myself and my style of leadership, I wouldn't have known to look for that in other people. I probably would have hired people that resonated more like me than not like me. And that made a huge difference in my hiring process and in the experience I'm having with team right now too. So if you understand your style, you can hire to complement it and get even more out of the people that you're adding to your team.
Well, the whole time you two have been talking about team, I have been thinking about that word leverage. And you talked about it in the beginning when you talked about your husband and that he like leveraged his relationships. And at the time you were saying that, I was like, is that really leadership? That feels really masculine to me. And now as you're talking about it, I'm like, oh no, it's Rachel and I talk a lot about word things and how we get hung up on words. So this is one of those moments where I'm like, oh no, because what you just described is you are leveraging your time, but you're leveraging your uniqueness, your unique gifts, you're all of those A's on your list. Like you are recognizing this is where I'm most powerful. This is where I feel most fully alive. And I'm going to leverage that because spending more time there, and this from an energetic place, right? Spending more time there can only bring me more amazingness. And I am thinking about so many of the women business owners that I know who have 1,000, I'm betting this happens, right? They have 1,000 of those, not 1,000, 10 A things on their list, 47 B things on their list, and 112 C things on their list. And they're like, I spend all my time in C. Because once I get this done, then I'll be able to spend time in A. And so what you're just describing, like I just experienced the most beautiful, like heart opening feeling of the word leverage. Like I think before leverage has always felt manipulative to me. And just because probably I heard it in that context once, right? And hearing it now, I'm like, oh no, leverage is amazing. So thanks for that.
Hey, that's all right.
And leveraging a team where I think this is what it is. It has always felt to me like leverage your gifts, like play it to your advantage, like, or not leverage their gifts. That's what I meant to say, right? Like use other people's stuff. And coming as a female to lead, like that didn't feel good to me. But recognizing it when I'm leveraging their gifts, I'm leveraging my own. We're empowering all of us. Like that's amazing. And as someone who is collaborating with Rachel and being a part of this, like I don't ever feel used, right? It feels empowering. And so thank you for that. Thank you for that beautiful example of empowering leadership.
Right on.
Yeah.
So we're almost at time, but since Dawn is also a member of Carrie's team BFF, I've been shuffling these cards this whole time.
I love those cards.
Another member, Jean Berry, made these.
Custom created for the group.
And the one that just came up now is being a CEO. So yay for that.
Whoop, whoop. That's awesome. Well, I really hope that this has been helpful. I just want all the solopreneurs in your community to really know, like, my heart feels you. I've been in your shoes. Everybody starts as a solopreneur. Beautiful things are ahead of you as you continue to build your business. And I hope that you take a little bit of time to invest in uncovering, if you're not owning that title of leader or CEO, what's underneath that for you? What are you concerned about? What are you afraid of? Who do you think you need to be to have it, that you can't just have it right now? Because once you step into that place, like Rachel, your sailboat analogy was so beautiful. Like then you're the captain of your ship and you can sail it wherever you want to sail it. And you'll still get there probably if you don't take on that title of leader. But imagine what it would be like if you had the full wind in your sails and the motor turned on, pointed in the direction you want to go. And the vision that you have that had you start your business, if that came up, if you came up to that horizon even faster, you know?
It would be an accelerator.
It would. You know, I like to go fast.
Yeah. And thank you, Liz, for your comment. We appreciate you too.
Thank you.
Liz
All
is
right,
rad.
cutie girls.
Well, thank you so much, Dawn.
You're
I
welcome.
can't wait to hear more from you. We'll have you on again, and good luck on your journey of, educating female leaders all over the world.
Thank you. I'm so excited to do it. Thank you for providing a space for me to share it with even more of them.
Yeah. Thanks, Carrie. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week. Lots and lots of love. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.